So, over here to your left is Jessica Alomar, who is producer and writer of the documentary feature Colonization is Extinction. And I think the name says it all. And, but as a first-time filmmaker, what she is a mental health professional. So she will be talking how she combines the two in her work, again, in moving community forward. Next to me, we have Mariposa, María Teresa Mariposa Fernández, who is an author, poet, educator, performance artist, playwright, and actress. And the next to me on the other side, we were pleased that not only do we have multimedia makers and actors present today, but that we have a musician, someone who devotes her life to music. We have Patricia Louie Melogia, and she is a singer, a musician, a writer, a guitarist, and a violinist since the age of 7. She's been playing the violin in her homeland where she was born, in Puerto Rico. And a Berkeley graduate, a proud Berkeley graduate. Next to her, to your right, is Elizabeth Angeles, who was in Puerto Rico. So our two ladies to the end actually were in Puerto Rico after the hurricane and can talk about their experiences. She is a multimedia maker now by a new birth. By virtue of what she saw after the hurricane, she became a mad blogger. And so she will share that as she landed up in Puerto Rico, because she was there with the New York City emergency management team to assist existing organizations in Puerto Rico in providing services and support to Puerto Rico. And certainly not last but least, Marlena Fitzpatrick-Garcia, a proud Puerto Rican who will be talking about not only Puerto Rican media, but also what is important is that mainstream media know what's happening to us from us. And not a third-hand perspective. So I'm going to kick it off. Are we ready for our first? So actually, I was the programmer of the International Puerto Rican Heritage Film Festival last year, and there was a short film that won Best Short Film. And I think it's a metaphor for Puerto Rico, and let's see what you think. It's called Amnesia Forzada, Forced Amnesia.
En el transcurso de mi niñez, cuando comenzó esta amnesia, fue un golpe inesperado. La cordura y la imaginación se vuelven una para mostrarte los caminos ocultos que has atravesado. Son estos los momentos en los cuales no sabes por qué has llegado a este lugar, y mucho menos qué haces en él. Tus manos se vuelven recuerdos olvidados, reflejos de un pasado inesperado. ¿Qué habrá ocurrido con mi padre? ¿Qué ha de ser de mi hermano? Mi madre. Recuerdo aquella pequeña finca donde me criaba mi padre con su tesa de almendra, cultivando la yuca, el ñame y los frutos que alimentaban a mi madre, mi hermano y a mí. Mi madre era estricta y su mirada esquiva todavía me persigue. Una extranjera en suelo latino. Su acento español nunca desapareció. Mi hermano gemelo me enseñó a trabajar la tierra y cómo excomulgar las malas hierbas. Solo mi padre creaba melodías que acariciaban las noches estrelladas de mi infancia. Mi padre, cuando me dormía con la sinfonía de su ser, me cantaba con su suave voz un pequeño poema que arrastraba a mi persona. Duerme mi encanto, duérmete ya, hija del mar, hija del sol, jardín florido, despiértame. Despierta. ¿Cómo terminaba su bella canción? No recuerdo cómo, pero mi padre desapareció, y junto a él los cantos y las noches estrelladas. Fue entonces cuando llegó mi padrastro, un hombre de muchas acciones. Mi hermano levantó lucha. El cañón de sus salidas se escuchó por todo el valle. Ahora la única melodía que daba en mi hogar eran sus gritos.
Have it back! This is my house, and you do what I say! ¡Sueltes! ¡Suéltame! ¡Largo! ¡Largo!
Después de esa noche, volví a ver a mi madre en toda mi vida. Quedé sola con mi padrastro extranjero. Me cerró con sus reglas y mi hogar se convirtió en mi prisión. Cuando único abría la puerta, era para lucrarse con la tierra de mi cuerpo. ¿Cuál es mi propósito? No sé. Después de largas noches de abuso, un día logré escapar. Sin rumbo. Mis piernas me llevaron lejos de mi fausto padrastro. Pero su sombra siempre cubriría mi ser. Tiempo después, encontré acogida en el campo. El sol, el agua y la tierra se convirtieron en mi hogar. Hay algo mágico en esta tierra. Coseché para ganar algo de dinero y me entregué al sudor. Fui feliz por muy poco tiempo. Mi padrastro llegó como la sombra del viento y su mano metálica me arrancó de la tierra que por tanto tiempo me dio fruto. La compañía industrializadora de mi padrastro convirtió tierra en cemento y no tuve de otra que mezclar caliza con fuego. ¿Quién soy? ¿Cuál es mi propósito? No sé. Cuando todo lo se convirtió en piedra, me quedé sin trabajo. Y aquí estoy. Llevo vagando por muchos años los rincones de esta extraña tierra. Busco mis respuestas en sus bosques y en las penas de sus ríos. Busco en las brumas de sus montañas y en los soles de sus valles. Nada. Solo que algo extraño está sucediendo. Mi piel no conoce arrugas y aunque los días se convierten en meses y los meses en años, sigo siendo la misma pequeña niña que se escapó de su casa. ¿Quién soy? Estoy perdida en el cemento. ¿Cuál es mi propósito? No sé lo que llevo dentro. No recuerdo, pero quisiera saberlo. ¿Qué soy? Como un golpe de agua, el velo de la desmemoria es levantado. Soy la melodía de mi padre. No aquella canción inventada por mi amnesia, sino la brisa de las playas me ha bañado con amnesia forzada, pero ya es suficiente. Sueño con mi libertad. Sueño con romper las cadenas de la ignorancia que me aferran a la piel. sueño con el día en que mi corazón se ha ondeado en las 4 puntas de mi cuerpo para así conocer mi verdadero ser. He sido por mucho tiempo un espejismo histórico invadido por la tiranía. He sido una posesión de muchos extranjeros. He sido mutilada, usada y descartada a la conveniencia de otros. Por mucho tiempo fui dócil ante este olvido. Pero las huellas de mi camino cuentan mi historia. Camino que mi padrastro solo ha llenado de engaño. Despierto del sueño. Levanto mi velo y veo mi libertad. Por mucho tiempo busqué quién era. Ya no más. Ya sé quién soy. Creo en mí, creo en mi tierra, creo en mis ciudades. Pero sobre todo, creo en ti. Mi propósito. Eso lo decides tú.
So in a nutshell, this is the power of media. We are all storytellers in this room, but especially on this panel, these are people who are standing up to the plate, who have done, who are doing, and will continue to do. And this film was done 15 months before Hurricane Maria, and that message could not be any stronger today. And it was done by Giancarlo Carreras, born in San Juan, a filmmaker who produced it, directed it, and wrote it. So before I lose one of our panelists in a few minutes, I want to start off with Marlena Fitzpatrick-Garcia at the end, who did go to Puerto Rico right afterwards. But what I love, this is a woman who has got 2 master's degrees from Texas, and one of her master's degrees is in creative writing. So she's a storyteller with a voice, and she got published in the Huffington Post, a very, very popular, website and news source. But it's important that we also get our stories out there. So I love, you went to Puerto Rico after the hurricane, and one of the great articles that you wrote, one in this article was telling Puerto Ricans who, from here in the States in New York City, people were dying to go and find their families, see how they were doing. And Marlena, in her typical no-nonsense fashion, gave a list of do's and don'ts, but mostly, if you can't deal with the following, don't come to Puerto Rico. We don't need you.
Well, I didn't say it like that.
But ella es de armas tomadas, armas. But so run through, and how much of that list and which of those points still stands today?
So I wrote, can you all hear me? I'm
No,
loud.
here you go. Aquí pasa.
Oh. Can you hear me better?
Yes,
Okay.
sí.
So I used my own experience, and that's why it's in first-person narration, which I cringe whenever I read stuff like that, particularly in news coverage. But I wanted to make a point that it was my experience, and I said, if you have a medical condition that you need special medication, if you need, if you don't wake up with your eyebrows and your face and you need spa treatments, and this is not the time. Because basically, we all want to go to Puerto Rico, but that needs to be secondary in your analysis. You're going to a disaster area. Mm-hmm. And the last thing you need, and people like us need, is for your, I was going to use an F word, but
No.
I'll behave.
We're live streaming. And there are little children in the room.
Okay, so your butt to become another risk factor. We don't need to go there to drink the little water that's there, to eat the food supply. You need to bring your own stuff. What I did, which I wrote in the piece, is I broke down the water in little mini bottles like this, and I froze them all. Then I folded them in foil. Mm-hmm. And when we landed, mind you, I flew directly from New York, so it's just 4 hours, and they were all still frozen when we got there. There were an enormous amount of suitcases all drenched in water because, well, the bottles broke. So, they were throwing things. And that would be still that's relevant today. That's my advice. I took protein bars, and that's all I ate for 8 days. And also, if you want a little bit more of nutrition, you can do the same with coconut water, not just regular water. And athletic clothing that dries real fast, and you can wash it real quick, and it'll still be functional day after day after day after day. And there's a crisis with the bees, and I talked about this extensively. There's very little reforestation plan. So you take honey, you take a little bit of water, and you put it outside your window, very far outside from your house and your cars, because bees are getting into houses and cars, and that is still relevant today. They lost their homes too, and birds and animals. So we need to also think about these things, bring seeds that you know are gonna flourish in our land. The last panel, and I will bring this up briefly, we are often forget about sexuality. Okay, there's a crisis of, I don't know how relevant it is today, but there were a couple of cases of women giving birth in the middle of the night at home because with no water, no electricity, of course. There was a case of a lady that actually passed away. So now there was a call in social media to donate breast milk for this now motherless newborn. But also, you know, we need more, and I did this call for you know, how do you survive? Let me measure my words. I think people can survive without sex, but how do you deal with sexuality during these areas? And the only piece that I've actually found was a Vox piece about sexual assault in shelters. And so that is our responsibility as media, is where are the experts writing about this? And why are they not being published? When you have people that are unknown, you don't know who you're staying with in a shelter, and anything can happen. So reproductive rights and sexuality, we need more voices. We need, as media makers, to propel those voices forward and to educate. Because it's not just giving condoms out, which, by the way, I highly recommend, you know, to distribute. So I didn't talk about that in the Huff, but I did talk about it in another panel. And people, you know, frowned upon that, but I still stand behind my words. So the other thing that I wanted to also bring up is entertainment. Bring books, bring games, stuff like that. Suicide, I'm not saying this cures it whatsoever, no, and I'm not even suggesting that, but there's a lot of depression, there's desperation, and I think that as creatives, it is an opportunity to actually write more, to create more music, to bring this joy, even if just for 30 seconds. So let's not forget about, you know, all sources of entertainment that do not require power or electricity. So books, games,
Acoustic instruments.
Stuff like that. And we talked about this on the phone, and I want to bring up, you know, as artists, we do have a responsibility to use our voice for these causes. Not just Puerto Rico, but, you know, it's easy to go and say, oh, you're just a celebrity, go and entertain me. And I wouldn't say that to an athlete, even though an athlete is also entertaining us, and there's an enormous amount of work. But I wouldn't say that to a doctor. I wouldn't say that to an architect. You just go and build and, you know, shut up, I don't need your opinion.
Marlena, I love what you raised yesterday when we were talking, that, you know, when we think of our politicians, when we think of media, what you were saying is, and, you know, our last panel is going to be with Susana Ramirez de Arellano, and she was saying that social media saved the day over traditional channels of media, that we're not functioning in Puerto Rico. And there's people who have severe criticism that they should have been better prepared. They should have known, you know, when it was only the radio, which ended up being 911 in Puerto Rico, the TV channels, because they didn't secure their satellite dishes. They didn't do, they knew, we all knew a hurricane was coming, and they were ill prepared. But what I love that you raised was that, you know, so you have someone like Susana talking that it was social media where she got her information through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you're saying it was artists who were in Puerto Rico doing more so than politicians were doing. And again,
Or government
our,
officials, yeah.
our responsibility, and again, the power that we have in and moving a community. So help me with that you were saying artists really were one of the first responders.
There's a sense of us being fearless. And, you know, there's a sense, again, this goes, well, oh my God, I'm going to just jump on a plane and go there and land, and then what are you going to do, right? I'm highly critical of pulling the trigger and then aiming. We need to be analytical. But the artist in me, and most of you here, says we have to do something, and it's about taking action. And artists, in those in the public eye, that are on the creative side, have jumped and they got on those planes and they went ahead and they put the boxes together and they went home to those homes, delivered food, and did all this stuff that I'm going, great, that's fantastic. But there are people that get paid to do this. There are people that get elected to do this. And so where are my taxes and where's my vote here? Why do I have to risk my life doing what you are trained? Because I'm not a professional in this. I'm just doing it because I feel as a Puerto Rican and as a citizen of this world that I have to do something. But I don't know what I'm doing sometimes, you know what I mean? If you tell me, well, I have to save the bees, I may be killing them because I'm, you know what I mean? So there are professionals for this that should take the leadership.
But artists were there.
But artists are the ones taking the leadership.
Right.
We are the ones packing those boxes. I don't want to diminish or, or be condescending to, other industries that have done their part.
Other first responders that are professionally
I mean,
trained.
absolutely. And there have been people that have done amazing work. But frankly, artists are the ones that did the telethon, they're recording, there's now a new book coming out, an anthology, there are more albums coming out, there are more concerts coming out. And frankly, it was a whole bunch of airplanes landing full of us.
So a perfect segue. I was going to take another route, but you opened up the Pandora's box. The office, it was really Mayor de Blasio's initiative immediately afterwards that he wanted to send from New York City representation and support. And here's your New York City Office of Emergency Management. And you're sent to Puerto Rico within how many days of the hurricane?
My team was sent a week after, 7 days.
A week after. And what I love what you also said is we didn't go there with this attitude of we are the omnipotent, U.S., New York City agency coming into your country to tell you what to do, how to do that. I love what you said, that the philosophy was we're going to go in there and we're going to collaborate with existing organizations and ask them, how can we support you? What do you need? And so I'd love to hear your technical. So when she's saying we need more people like you from Puerto Rico and from other areas, like we'll also hear from Jessica, whose husband works for Con Edison and left this morning at 6 a.m. with a team of people who are going to set up poles throughout Puerto Rico and put electrical wiring on it. And she's losing a husband for 5 weeks to do it. So speak to us from a professional perspective and then the switch that it flipped.
Sure, and so I'll just echo what you said about self-deploying. That's what we call it in the field. So New York City Emergency Management plans and prepares New York for large-scale emergencies. And part of our mission in Puerto Rico was to support the Puerto Rico Emergency Management Agency. So we were there with that direct mission to support Puerto Rico. And as was said, we really were there not to say what should happen or how things should go, even though our expertise was certainly valuable, especially after everything we went through after Sandy, but really to take direction and help Puerto Rico the way that Puerto Rico wanted to be helped. I want to say self-deployment is a big no-no. That's what we call when volunteers or any actually staff just goes down without a mission, because volunteer management in itself creates more work, right? If you have people showing up that don't have a job to do or don't have skills that are already expressed needs, now you need someone to take away from what their job or whatever they were doing to help manage these volunteers. And so that's an excellent point that I think everyone wants to help, but you have to make sure you're doing it in the right way. And so our team, it was a team of 10. We were actually the second team that went down and deployed. And we were working directly at what we call the Joint Field Office. directly with FEMA and directly with the Puerto Rico Emergency Management Agency. So I saw firsthand, you know, the good and the bad, right? The politics, all the barriers that gets in the way of things getting done. But I also worked with some incredible people who have been working long hours, especially on the Puerto Rico side since Irma, right? Because these people were activated, as we call it, before Maria had hit. They were all personally affected, so I worked with people who were sleeping in their cars and then coming in for their next 12 to 14-hour shift because they didn't want to wait another, I don't know how many hours to get gas. And that was even for these priority clients, right, that were working. And so even those lines were hours long.
9 hours I did.
Yeah,
For 9
in the
hours,
beginning
yeah.
it was 10 or more. And sometimes they would wait in line, get so close, and it was time to start their shift again, and they didn't even get to refill. So how painful was it to then, you know, us come and work with these folks? And I'll also say most of my work was centered, so the joint field office was centered out of the San Juan Convention Center. So I was mostly in San Juan. We commuted from Rio Grande, you know, at about an hour or so. And I only saw that snippet. And I mean, we all saw the photos about the extent of this catastrophe. You know, in San Juan it was bad. Imagine the mountainous regions, right? The less urban, the more rural sides. And so that was my perspective, was really that urban setting. And so we worked long hours with folks, you know, really trying to lift their morale, integrate, make sure FEMA and the Puerto Rico government agencies were working together. That's what we do here in New York. We're a coordinating agency. And out there was a lot of complicated factors for me personally. I'm a New Yorican, but I was the only one with ties to Puerto Rico on my team. And
So you were the only Latina.
Yes. And so on my team from New York, right? And so that had a lot of complications in itself.
But how important was that at least there was one Latina seated at the table
Right.
who knew all the cultural nuances, that knew
Right.
the language
Right.
intensively? You know, so you're doing a great job. Talk about that other layer. And then I want you to talk about how it flipped that creative side of your brain.
Sure, and so, right, to that point, I became not just the interpreter from a language perspective, but leadership began to look for me, you know, to talk to me, and I started to learn, you know, we went in there, as I said, with the mission in place, but when we got there, there was no mission. The way in emergency management, the way it works is there's a system in place, there's a plan, right, the way things are supposed to happen, but all of that was not in place when we got there. And so we had to figure out, okay, how is the information really flowing? What's really happening? And it took about 2 or 3 days to figure out, okay, because so-and-so wants to take over this is who's really in charge, we have, you know, so that was really my role. I began to, as you begin to talk to people, figure out what is really happening. And I think I was able to be that conduit for my team because they began to trust me, right? And I was grateful to be able to play
So
that
you were
role.
trusted by the Puerto Rican agencies
Right.
because you're one of ours,
Right.
as opposed to them helping
Right.
us, and you were a great support and a beacon for the New York City contingent.
Right, and so my leadership said, Elizabeth, come with us to talk to so-and-so, you know. And I was happy to do it because, you know, if not me, who, you know? And
Right.
if I'm able to use that skill set and that trust to make things better, as tiny as it can be, you know, and always in the back of my mind, it's like, am I really making an impact? Because again, I was in this office, right, with all these officials. When you think about, oh wow, you know, I came back and people said, thank you so much for everything you did. It's hard because I wasn't delivering water bottles to people. I wasn't getting that satisfaction of saying, like, Toma, like, here you go, like, here's a generator, here's, you know, you don't see that it wasn't that rewarding. But you start to see, okay, now these resource requests that are coming in from all over the municipalities are now getting organized. They're becoming, okay, life safety is becoming prioritized. And so it's like you have to hang on to these little snippets of progress.
See, that's why, she's gonna leave us in a second.
Sorry.
Wait, but I need you for just 2 more minutes before we go. I wanna ask you one last thing before you fly out. So we're gonna segue to you.
Yes.
What I've been fighting for the last 25 years in media is that we are rarely at the table. And that's why we also have to demand as consumers, not only as multimedia makers and artists and journalists, that we have to demand that there's always at least one Latino present at the table. And because there was one, and these are usually the stats, 1 out of 10 in these professional situations, but because there was someone who was Puerto Rican, who spoke the language, that she made a difference not only in Puerto Rico, but for the actual team. So that's what I love about the fact that not only is a Puerto Rican-born writer communicating what's happening in Puerto Rico, but what struck me is that you were sharing your stories with mainstream media.
Right.
And so as an inspiration to her, because as she's going to talk about her blog in a moment, and she did it out of the frustration of what she saw and what struck a chord with her, she's also wondering, what do I do next? And I think a lot of people in this room, some people here don't know what to do, but they want to do something. Some people in this room have done things, but they don't know what to do next. So what advice would you have for someone like her who launched a blog, but now wants, and it's the keg has been lit. What would you say to someone like that who you've seen is doing and is now questioning, what do I do next?
If you have a platform, share it with other people. That's, I think it's important. Go back to the example of the reproductive rights. If you want to write about something and you're not an expert, outreach to that expert and offer your platform. You know what I mean? And that's part of actually creating community. So you can't do it alone. I hate to say it, sorry, but you can't. But you can.
But that's why we're here.
But you can open yourself to be aligned with the right people and unify all those voices. So use your platform to share it with levels of expertise. And I go back to this word, be fearless. I mean, let me put it this way. Trump blocked me on Twitter.
Wow, qué orgullo.
And Joel Osteen.
You and Stephen King.
And I wear that like a badge of honor because you have to be fearless and you have to say what you have to say. But always keep in mind that facts should always prevail. Right, and when we write in the news and we use these different platforms, be it me as a music journalist for Univision in Spanish or whatever, or writing about news, or right now dedicating my time to write about Puerto Rico, my focus is we need to continue to keep this in the limelight because this is ongoing and there's no end in sight. So. If you do not find inspiration to write something, find someone that has something to say. But right now, it is about us sharing that loudspeaker and with facts.
Great.
Yeah.
Gracias, Marlena.
Thank you so much.
Fitzpatrick-Garcia.
Marlena, I'm a
Yeah.
big fan. Let's take a selfie real quick. I love your work. 1, 2, 3. You want to be in
Very
it too?
good.
Come on. 1, 2, 3.
There we
you,
go.
Marlena.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
So,
I'll be back like around 5. How's
No,
that?
no,
And
no.
I'll meet everybody.
Marlena never goes away. Elizabeth, tell me in 2 minutes, so you were not a blogger about this beforehand, and you did this incredibly lengthy and intensive thing out of what many of us are facing, rabia, rage, disappointment, hurt, frustration. So tell me about your blog.
So I'll say I never called myself a blogger, multimedia-maker, so thank you. It's really an honor to share this panel with folks that really have done so much. Really, I came back, fast forward, come back. I haven't, through my time in Puerto Rico, actually, I started to realize that I was getting firsthand updates because I was there. I was at all the press conferences of the governor. I was getting the firsthand experiences and news. And I started to share one-off posts on Facebook, which Facebook I haven't necessarily used. My social media I haven't used. If I know that things are circulating, I only echo things that I feel, are going to have an impact or my network doesn't already know, right? So I started to realize, okay, my network may not know that status.pr was just launched. And so I started to put these little tidbits that I started to get out. And then when I got back, I couldn't stop thinking about Puerto Rico, obviously. You know, I know some people come back and they just want to detach. For me, it was the opposite effect. I started reading every news article I could find. And I started thinking, wow, like all these people that I met, all these stories, people doing amazing work, and all this nuance that I wasn't getting from the traditional media about, you know, you see the two big arguments on two sides, and I was there, and you start to see the nuance. Long story short, I needed to write, and part of that was my process. Selfishly, I think I had been writing while I was there, and I said, you know, people are asking me, how was it, thank you. So I wrote this blog that was really meant to highlight. I tried to keep a positive spin on it, try to not focus too much on some of the, you know, the difficult pieces that anger me, and maybe that's my next direction, I don't know. But I wanted to just shed light on who I met, what we did, and at the end, make it actionable. These are all the organizations that I know of that are donating, and I asked people what else. And I've since updated that section to take action.
Can you tell them how they can find your blog?
Yes, it's my name, ElizabethAngeles.com.
ElizabethAngeles.com.
Thank you. And essentially, what's come out of it is people have said, oh, you know, I've also heard of this organization and that, and some local, like, you know, Sunset Park Relief Coalition here in New York. You know, I was able to share the update about the service center here in New York, and that's part of the work that I do. I've been going to a couple of El Centro's events, and since then I've met some wonderful people, and I have a blog post ready to share some other ways people can take action, like adopting a small business in Puerto Rico, if you know how they can produce something abroad and they can stay and continue their work in Puerto Rico from there. You know, there's a lot of people who are doing great work, and if I could help amplify, I think that's my immediate next step. And I'm also talking to some of my colleagues who are there and trying to figure out more actionable. But for now, I'm amplifying the message, and I was, you know, people have reached, found me through that blog as well, and so I hope that continues.
So, and look, you know, you're hearing a seasoned, you know, news person, journalist, writer like Marlena, who's been doing this all her life, who's been trained in this field, and first-time bloggers are okay. You know, it's all about how do you channel your energy and stuff like that. So I'm gonna jump over to a first-time filmmaker who's actually a mental health professional. So it's like, you know, and I asked her yesterday, are you so now, what are you? Are you a mental health professional who makes films, or are you a filmmaker who's a mental health professional? And it was really interesting. She said to me, no, I'm a mental health professional, but I found a vehicle for my voice. So tell me about Colonization is Extinction, and how you weave your work as a mental health professional in helping Puerto Ricans.
So our film, Colonization is Extinction, was obviously thought of and created and finished well before Hurricane Maria, but I think that the film highlights the issues with colonization, and Hurricane Maria showed us that that's absolutely correct, that what we're seeing with what's going on in the hurricane is it is intentional, the lack of response, and it is genocide, and it is the death of the island, and they want people to leave because every time somebody leaves, they are able to swoop in and take in the land. And I would not be surprised if in a few months you see efforts to give people relocation grants. So
We
that they
just
can
found
stay
out
here.
today that FEMA is willing to, is going to
Relocate.
start airlifting people
yeah,
to
of
the
course they
United
are.
States.
Right,
So this was
because-
just announced today.
Right, and so I'm not surprised to hear that. And so my opinion may be a little forceful and not the most well accepted in the general sense, but I think that it's important to understand that our goal is to teach people that the forced assimilation that happens here helps to create that example that was in the film, where there is a sense of amnesia. You forget who you are. One of the things that we do, our kids sing that song, La Boriqueña, every night before they go to sleep. And we,
You're talking about your kids.
my children.
She has 3 kids.
Yeah. And the reason that the film is important, and we felt like our voice was needed to be heard through film, was because not enough people know what actually happens. Not enough people know the history, the true history. They know the indoctrination that we receive here because we're being told what they want us to know about the history. And even in Puerto Rico, that information is coming from here because Puerto Rico is controlled by the United States. So the idea of colonization, if you want to know how colonization impacts a group of people and an island, look at what's happening in Hurricane Maria. That death toll is much higher than 50, much, much higher. What's happening in Puerto Rico is, it's a crime against humanity. And so one of the things that I do, in addition to the film, is people are going to be struggling with mental health as a result of this tragedy, and it is our job as mental health professionals to not further harm them by having an ethnocentric view of what treatment should be. So multicultural competency is very important at helping people understand that forced assimilation creates historical trauma, that's a real thing. That's not something that people just make up so they can get out of having to move on with their, this happened to your ancestors so long ago, how is that still relevant? It's still relevant. And we need to treat people as such. And so kind of weaving this all together and giving people the film as a way of teaching about things that, we're never going to learn otherwise. So.
How are you merging both worlds as a mental health professional and as now a storyteller? I mean, that you can't put, what is it,
Right.
the pop-up back in the box?
Right,
That you
right.
can't put Jack back in the box.
Yeah.
So how are you moving forward? How are you now going to be a storyteller while trying to help people who've been suffering forced assimilation for so long, and it results in different strands of mental health issues?
I think one of the ways that I do that is that I'm really honest about where I was at within myself. When my husband came to me with this idea for a movie, I have to tell you where we were at in our lives. We had just had our third baby, who was only 12 months behind our second baby, and I had 3 children under the age of 3. We both work full time. He said, I want to make a documentary. The extent of our knowledge about films is what movie we're going to pick after the kids go to bed, so that's all we knew. And he wanted to make a documentary, and I said, no. And his response was, well, this is important. We need to get the information out, so I'm doing it no matter what. And so I helped, but I was reluctant to throw myself into it because I really didn't feel like I had enough time. And part of my job was to do research, and so I was reading.
Because you wrote the film.
Right. So I was reading Nelson Dennis's book, War Against All Puerto Ricans, just for added information. And I got to the part about the Ponce Massacre, and I had to read that chapter 3 times because I cried every time I read it, because I couldn't believe that something like that had happened, that nobody knows about it, and that to add insult to injury, they staged dead bodies to look like they were the antagonists. And I read that, and so I got in the car where I was meeting him at the ferry, and I turned to him when I got in. I said, okay, so when we do the part about the Ponce Massacre, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And he says, so you're on board now? And I said, are we going to discuss it, or are we going to discuss how we're going to do the film? Because we need to tell the story. And I'm honest about that because I think it's important for us to understand that everyone needs to have that moment where they see what the truth is and be honest that that process has to happen for us to then take that information and say, well, what do I want to do about it? And become motivated. So.
And again, as a documentary filmmaker, and obviously involved with the Puerto Rican community since before I was born, I learned so much from your film about the history of Puerto Rico that I didn't know. That's made me angry. But channeling, today is about how do we channel that anger without being Pollyannas in a
Right.
positive way to not only heal ourselves, but to also move a community. And again, Puerto Rico, here. And I'm going to do a short segue over to, so you're born in Puerto Rico, and yet you're honest that you were part of that Exodus migration, coming to the States, living between Boston as a Berkeley graduate, New York, and Philadelphia, and that out of your anger and your pain, that you're recording, so a musical artist, that you're channeling your storytelling. You're now inspired to create a CD, a new album, specifically post Hurricane Maria, and that you want to do a documentary film
Yes.
that's going to be multi-experiential,
Yes.
for lack of a better word,
Yes.
but that also you're going to address. What's interesting is we now have 3 separate universes: the New Rican, shall we say, New York, the Puerto Rican, and now we're having a whole new group of people coming into New York. So, and where you're going to be ni de aquí ni de allá, because you're not a New Rican and you're not someone they're visiting over the summer in Puerto Rico.
No.
You're now living in our backyard.
Yes.
And you're going to face also discrimination on both sides. Puerto Ricans who are pissed that you left the island for them to rebuild, and New Ricans who don't get you.
Well, that's kind of been the story.
That's kind of been the story of my life because I'm African American. My dad's from Philadelphia and my mom's from Rio Piedras. And so my father moved to Puerto Rico 30 years ago. And I've always been very much in contact with both my cultures. But I've always felt like neither of them truly understood me. It was my duty to mold, I'm like a chameleon, into the culture that I was in. So, and I used to think it was, I was kind of a victim about it. I don't think nobody really knows. I don't think I've met a African American Puerto Rican family born and raised in Puerto Rico. But I also understood now that it's my beauty.
And you're using it as a weapon.
And I'm using it now as a weapon. I am a bridge of 2 cultures. Not only that, but now, when I lived in Boston, when I studied at Berklee College of Music, I was studying music business. I was also faced with discrimination. I was pulled by both sides. It was interesting to watch. African Americans would be like, no, but you're black. Puerto Ricans would be like, why are you hanging out with los negros? And it was just like, I don't know. And so now I can actually take all those experiences and bring them together in the music. Before Hurricane Maria, we were going through the fiscal crisis. I mean, it's still a crisis, but nobody wants to talk about it because we're trying to be sensitive, but it's still there. And I had been singing in a musical once on this island, the first Spanish adaptation. I was the lead role, Team Moon. We were working for 6 months, and it got canceled because when we were going to do it, it was in the University of Puerto Rico, and right then and there, the fiscal board of control was trying to take away, I think, like $500,000 from public education, and the students went on strike, and they closed the gates, and they didn't let us in, and the musical was, we never really finished it. We only did 3 functions, so we didn't get paid. It was like 6 months of a lot of work. We were all broke. It was terrible. That happened. A lot of things happened, and then I started doing my EP, and then Hurricane Maria happened. The EP had only one song about Puerto Rico, about what we were going through. It was gonna be mostly commercial. Hurricane Maria happened. The studio I was working in had no electricity. The musicians were very honest with me. The producer was like, Patricia, I gotta be honest with you. I wake up in the morning and I gotta go get water and I gotta go get food, and I can't help you. And that was heartbreaking for me, to start over after the musical incident, so I was starting to understand that all of this was because of colonization. I am an artist, a colonized artist.
How are you flipping it around
Now I'm flipping
in a
it around.
proactive way?
Now, after all these experiences, I come to the United States and I feel all this, I feel so welcomed. I see the diaspora that we've been so disconnected from embracing me and helping me in so many ways. And I don't think Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico actually understand how much love there is up here. So I decided to get together with many friends in Puerto Rico and here in Boston to do a documentary. And it's going to be called Boricua en la Luna, La Nueva Diaspora, the new diaspora. And I want to bring together, I want to capture the stories of Puerto Ricans like me who are being embraced. I want to capture the stories of the diaspora, of how they got here, how their parents got here, and what process they went through. I want to talk about racism. I want to talk about all the things that Puerto Ricans are now going to face I understood that there's a huge problem, and it's that we're all constantly debating about statehood, or should we be a state, should we be state independent, or what? How are we gonna be treated fairly? Some people think it's statehood. I personally don't think it's statehood. There's a much bigger fight that we have to confront, even if we become a state. So that fact does not matter. And the governor right now isn't standing up for us the way he should, because he believes in statehood. The only one that's standing up for us is Julene. And that's a huge problem, because when you let people think that Puerto Rico is okay, then help goes away, international help goes away. We're being controlled by the United States, yet the United States isn't doing enough to help us. We are colonized, and we are dying slowly because of it.
But as we say, no hay mal que por bien no venga, as she was the only one to take on President Trump.
Exactly.
That they're talking that Yulín debía de postularse para gobernador, that she should put herself up, and will probably run for governor of Puerto Rico next. So, I want to give everybody time, plus leave a couple of minutes for Q&A. We want to hear from the audience. But Camacho, can I have the wedding clip of Mariposa over here, who's a poet, performance artist? Ya no es una señorita, se casó. She got married. She got married. She got married. And so we want to show you a clip. Se casó con Puerto Rico.
Except you, Puerto Rico, and your diaspora. Mother Earth and humanity.
This was a mass wedding.
As my true love. To love and protect. From this day on. In good times and in bad. For richer, for poorer. In sickness and in health. For all the days of my life. I promise to be faithful to you. Until death do us part. Yo, María Teresa Fernández Rosario Rodríguez de las Maripositas, te acepto a ti, Puerto Rico, y tu diáspora, la madre tierra y la humanidad, con mi amor de verdad, amarte y protegerte, de hoy en adelante, en la riqueza, en la pobreza, en la enfermedad y en la salud, para todos los días de mi vida, promete serte fiel, en hasta que la muerte nos separe. Thank you.
It wasn't just a standoff, one-time thing. She had a wedding registry. And so it's like,
still up on Amazon.
and the wedding
These are
registry
some of the
was,
gifts.
she asked for
Okay.
gifts to send to Puerto Rico. And are
People
you
from
feeling,
all over the United States,
Are-
because of a blog written by Denise Oliver, speak about the power of our writing and blogs, okay? This wedding registry, people from all over the United States who've never heard of my work, from towns I've never even heard of, are sending gifts for Puerto Rico, okay? I have semillas. Where are they? I want to just say that so far, 5 towns have received semillas from the wedding gifts. Okay, we have semillas. Thank you. You can use that one. I'll use this one. We have semillas. These are bamboo linings. I don't know. The agricultural workers know about this. But I consulted with people to know like what items to put on the wedding registry. Oh, which vegetables grow in Puerto Rico, which it also includes tobacco. No one has ordered tobacco yet, but it helps to repel mosquitoes. It could be grown in the mountains, but I just want to say that a miracle occurred on my wedding, and a church was thus consecrated. La Iglesia de la Madre de las Maripositas. Now, I was able to reach Reverendo Pedro Pietri in the hereafter. It's very expensive, so I had to call him collect, and he accepted the charge. He approves that La Iglesia can be the sister church of La Iglesia de la Madre de los Tomates. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, you need to learn the history of the New Rican poetry movement. I don't have time to get into it right now, but it is about taking action, okay? So now is the time. Now is the time. I actually am going to begin officiating mass weddings. You heard the call and response. It was an intergenerational affair, a successful community event. By far, it was mostly elders who were there, which made me feel so honored. And so here, my friend got me this. I told her, necesito una novia negra. Don't come back with a bride with blonde hair and blue eyes. She found this in the bridal shop on Simpson Street, and she went in and she asked, she said, necesito una novia negra. El hombre dijo a ella, pero las negras nunca se casan. She came back apologizing. She said, I'm sorry that she's, no tan negra, pero she's trigueña. She'll do. So we have here, this was what was on top of the cake. I had a 3-layered Valencia cake, de piña, guava, and strawberry. Okay, this was on top of the cake. Okay. Now we have, if you wonder what's happening right now, a wedding is about to happen. Okay, for those of you that are ready to take the vow, I have copies right here. Okay, I need help distributing. I need help. Okay, no wedding is complete without flowers.
We're getting a live performance of a
We're
wedding.
getting married right now because Louie said, I want to marry you, TíoLouie.
Okay.
We're going to do it.
Sage,
Okay,
we got
okay.
sage, un despojo.
Oh my God. Okay,
But wait a second, you can't get married again, that would be polygamy.
No, it's omnigamy.
Okay.
Omnigamy, I belong to everyone.
Okay.
Okay, espérate un momento, wait, I need something important. Okay, so we need the presence of the ancestors.
Agua de Florida.
Okay, so call out the names of some ancestors. I begin with Julia de Burgos, Don Pedro Avisu Campos.
Lina Stacio.
¿Quién más? Mary, mi mamá. María es mi bisabuela.
Filiberto Ojeda Río.
Sí.
Isa y Elsie Nieves.
Teresa Rodríguez Rosario.
Eddie Castro.
María Juárez de Lauriano.
Oscar López.
¿Quién más? Richie Pérez, Pedro, el reverendo Pedro Pietri.
Evelina Antonetti, Lilian López, Lorraine Montenegro.
H.
Lolita Lebrón.
Lolita, doña Lolita.
Alice Cardona.
Casildo de Tres.
Okay.
Okay.
Billy Thomas.
Pásame,
Okay,
pásame
falta
un
una
papel.
bandera aquí, but don't worry, I have
Okay.
one.
Okay.
I'm unapologetically a nationalist. Okay, so we'll do it in Spanish. Okay, I will lead, and then we'll do the call and response. I want to say that Adal Maldonado is designing official marriage certificates. And we're going to be doing a mass wedding at Uprose in Brooklyn in December, and there will be mass weddings.
So
Just
this
like
is
El
continuing.
Reverendo, this will continue because it's an opportunity for us to make a lifelong vow to Puerto Rico and to la Madre Tierra y la Humanidad. And to those that are here that are not Puerto Rican, to whatever you identify as your homeland. That could be right here in El Barrio. It is. The Bronx. We all share this planet. And if we don't step up and do something and commit for the rest of our lives, there's not going to be a planet for the future generations. And that's why I believe that it was mostly elders that came to my wedding that took me seriously. And I'm so thankful. And I want to thank Bombayo. I want to thank Dr. Drum. I want to thank Melinda. I want to thank David Galarza, who was at my wedding. So we're going to take the vow now. So you say your name. You say yo, in my case, María Teresa Fernández Rosario Rodríguez de las Maripositas. So you say your name. Yo,
Luis Perego Moreno.
acepto
A ti, Puerto Rico.
a ti, Puerto Rico,
A ti, Puerto Rico.
y tu diáspora,
Y tu diáspora.
la madre tierra
La madre tierra
y la humanidad,
y la humanidad.
como mi amor de verdad,
Como mi amor de verdad.
amarte y protegerte
Amarte y protegerte.
de hoy en adelante,
De hoy en adelante.
en lo próspero, en lo adverso,
En lo próspero y en lo adverso.
en la riqueza y en la pobreza,
En la riqueza y en la pobreza.
en la enfermedad y en la salud,
En la enfermedad y en la salud.
para todos los días de mi vida.
Para todos los días de mi vida.
Te prometo serte fiel
Prometo serte fiel
hasta que la muerte
hasta que la muerte
nos separe.
nos separe.
H. Now we can all kiss each other. Yo tengo catarro. You can? Okay, yo tengo catarro. Okay, so I can't kiss anybody. At my wedding, I hugged and I kissed everybody. But I have some kisses here, and I'm going to pass this around. Okay, if you want to have a real marriage certificate, I'll pass this around. You could sign your name in the marriage book, okay? I'm gonna pass this around. You could take a kiss. You could also drop a few ducats in here, okay? I'm going to Puerto Rico. I have over 175 gifts. I already bought my pasaje. I arrived December 21st. I'm gonna be volunteering, offering poetry workshops and readings with La Festival de la Palabra, spending time with my family. I'm delivering toys. I'm doing a toy drive already. The first batch of toys got sent to Puerto Rico. My project is called Mujeres con Maletas. But now men want to be involved, so we have hashtag hombres con paquetes. That's my kind of man. So then the goal is to go to Vieques the January 1st hasta el Día de los Reyes, and then January 7th I'm going to Santa Cruz. So someone talked about the sex crimes that are happening. There are definitely sex crimes happening in Santa Cruz, and probably people are not talking about this. But what's happening in Santa Cruz, and this is directly from someone who is a filmmaker who I know who's there, who said that it's mostly happening to children, to little girls, to children that are living with, that are being forced to live with strangers, y también con tíos y primos. And we need to intersect, and I agree and I appreciate what Edwin said. Do not separate us. Also, do not separate the issues. We have to look at what's happening in this catastrophe, in this humanitarian crisis, through an intersectional lens. And I speak as a survivor of child sexual abuse and sexual assault and domestic violence. That we need to put the lens on all of the oppressive mechanisms that are hurting us and say no more. So hashtag #MeToo and hashtag no more. Que viva Puerto Rico libre. Freedom is the only way. And that's where I stand. So I'm gonna pass around the kisses. I can't really stay in network because actually Howard Jordan, I'm supposed to be on Howard Jordan at 3:05. So I have to run outside and then I'll come back, but I'm gonna pass this around.
María Teresa Mariposa Fernández.
I'm going to steal 5 minutes from the next panel. Are there any Q&A for any of the ladies still up here? Any questions? Any inspiration? Any collaborative offers?
First of all, I want to thank you all for being here. And I've heard a lot about the documentary. Can we see it?
Yeah, so actually it's in the Puerto Rican Film Festival right now, and also on Sunday. I think it's playing at 1 o'clock. And then we can purchase it on theocho.net, theocho.net. There's a link there to purchase the film.
And there'll be time to network as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
Afterwards, you had something?
Buenas tardes a todos, mi nombre es Juan de Vega. Yo estoy aquí para compartir con ustedes y agradecerles el trabajo que están haciendo por los puertorriqueños. Yo estoy aquí representando a cada puertorriqueño que estuvimos la noche la madrugada del 20 de septiembre, comenzando a sentir los vientos y el ataque de un feroz huracán categoría 5. No es bien fácil pues, decirlo porque es algo fuera de lugar. Ya ustedes saben los resultados, pero le agradezco a nombre de cada puertorriqueño que sufrimos eso, cada puertorriqueño que estamos padeciendo ahora, cada puertorriqueño que hemos venido para acá, porque yo, por ejemplo, yo soy actor y productor, tengo un programa por 37 años y lo transmito por Telemundo.2, los canales se quedaron out, trabajo en comunicaciones, me quedé incomunicado. 37 años trabajando para mí, por mí mismo, y no es fácil de la noche a la mañana, de una madrugada a otra, quedarte en un signo de interrogación. Yo dije, tengo que hacer algo, trabajo para mí, yo tengo bachillerato, gradué de 2 universidades y trabajé para mí desde el principio. Y me vine para acá y somos creativos como todos los que estamos aquí, porque aquí lo que hay es la crema innata de la creatividad y de las comunicaciones. Y entonces...
¿Usted está recién llegado de Puerto Rico?
Sí, llegué me vine para acá el 15 de octubre. Fui a
For
Rochester.
those that don't speak Spanish, he's, in a nutshell, he's so grateful to the panel and basically speaks on behalf of Puerto Ricans in Puerto Rico. Thank you for what you're doing. He was in media in Puerto Rico. He's been here since the 20th of October. Y necesito, le doy máximo un minuto.
Yeah,
porque
I'm
no
gonna
se
finish.
ve.
I'm gonna finish. So, gracias una vez más. Vine para acá tuve que crear algo, inventarme algo, porque esto es así. Y creé Abrazo Boricua. Abrazo Boricua, grabé puertorriqueños allá para enviar saludos a sus familias acá. Y lo estamos pasando ahora mismo en Telemundo Rochester en la programación prime time hasta diciembre mediados. Y ha tenido un efecto bien lindo. Le agradezco a todos la oportunidad. Estoy aquí, si estoy en los medios, si alguien de los medios me quiere considerar. Trabajé con Iris Chacón, con Chayanne, 10 películas, 10 telenovelas, 7 películas, y aquí estoy para todos ustedes. Cuando termine, pues si quieren, le doy mi tarjeta. Gracias a ustedes por la colaboración.
I'm going to have to limit it to just one last one because we need to go on. So, un minuto, por favor.
I'm a graduate of City College. I was in Puerto Rico from 2006 to 2013. I saw this coming and I got out because I thought I could help more from here and being there where everything is, there is no government. There's nothing but corruption on all, throughout the spectrum, throughout the political spectrum. Everybody's stealing electricity, you name it, everything is happening. The destruction of nature, the lack of respect for nature is abominable. Abuse, my God. I went to Facebook because I saw abuse in Puerto Rico. I was an abused child. And it starts with animal abuse. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. You know, they have these animals chained. And they use them as alarms. Right? And the children are taught to treat animals like that. Obviously, I think I don't have to go into details, you know what happens to children when they grow under those conditions. So here I am, and I want to quote Aaron Rothschild in the 19th century. He said, "He who controls information controls the world." Right? I've been through many schools and colleges taking credits here and there, from the Sorbonne, University of Stockholm. I traveled throughout Europe. I always traveled with an escort from the FBI. It's a badge of honor. All right, they never know what I'm going to do. Okay, been to Venezuela, and throughout social media, I have a lot of friends who are in contact in Puerto Rico and elsewhere. Everybody here has a big responsibility in this war, because this is a war. Please be aware that you have paid when the NSA 9/11 happened, immediately they hired 10,000 experts in cyber warfare. Each one has 10 identities. That's 100,000. Plus you have the idiots that buy the, the official narrative. And narrative is very important. We have to control that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to end, I'm going to have, because it's so late, and we need to finish no later than 6:15. I have 2 more panels. But Camacho, if I still have you on board, that last video, just to show you what Patricia Louie Melogia is working on. This is a group that is coming from Puerto Rico to collaborate with Berkeley contacts that she has in Boston and creating this bridge between Puerto Rico and the U.S. And this is what they've already done, and look what they're going to get, what they will do after this. If we can dim the lights, please. That's the video. Yep, that's it.
¿Qué pasó aquí? Aquí no ha pasado nada. Aquí volvimos a ser gente.
María vino a probarnos de qué estábamos hechos. Vino a devolvernos las ganas de echar para adelante y el coraje para decir yo puedo, nosotros podemos. Vino a abrir caminos para volver a empezar y para demostrarnos que somos más que un 100 por 35, mi gente. Vino a pintar en nuestra piel el orgullo y la grandeza de nuestra bandera. Una sola patria. Un pueblo renace. Mi patria renace. Puerto Rico renace.
If I can have the lights back on. So in closing, a word that struck me very much from this video and what you've heard articulated by everybody is Puerto Rico renace. No hay mal que por bien no venga. Out of the silver lining out of this is a renaissance. It's an opportunity for a rebirth. That's what you're hearing here. Some people have done, some people don't know what to do, or who've done and don't know what to do next. Let's collaborate together. But look at the messages that have come just from this group. This is the tip of the iceberg and how much more can be done. So I want to thank my panelists, Jessica Alomar, Patricia Louie Melogia, Mariposa and Marlena Fitzpatrick.